1.8 is brought to you by Lego Dolphin. So in 1.8, we're going to look at this notion of apportionment and kind of how the forefathers of the Constitution put together representation in the United States government. So a part of this apportionment is the idea of computing standard divisors and quotas, and then these different types of apportionment methods. So the main idea here is there are things that are not divisible, what we're calling indivisible ideas. So representation, the number of cars in a police station, the number of sonograms, machines to hospitals. You could think of the number of ventilators in hospitals, all these things. You can't cut those things into smaller parts. You have to give the whole of them. And so apportionment is all about what is a fair process for assigning these indivisible objects among these different entities. It's kind of an agreed upon process, and we go from there. So we start with this concept of the standard divisor. So, for example, we just pointed out the most logical way to attack dividing up the seats in Congress would be to divide the entire population by the number of seats. This would tell us how many people on average would be represented by one congressperson. That's what we call the standard divisor. So we're going to use the language of seats throughout the rest of this this lesson, even though seats could mean police cars or something other than like a person. So here is that definition of the standard divisor. It's the total population divided by how many things you can divide, which we're calling the number of seats. So we're going to work through an example here. Here we have some district that has been broken into, or some city that's been broken into 5 districts. And this is the population in each district. Notice these are in thousands. And this city has 20 seats to allocate among these 5 districts. And we're going to do it proportionally. So this first question is, why isn't it fair to just assign 4 representatives to each district? Notice that what they're saying is, hey, take the 20 seats, divide it by 5, and you get 4 reps per district. Well, if you look at the different districts, that means a district that had 80,000 people in it would have as much voice as the district that only had 20,000 people in it. So if you really wanted your voice to be heard, you should be moving into this district under that, just dividing the number of seats by the number of districts. Hopefully that's clear that that's not a fair way to divide that up, because these folks are overrepresented, these folks are underrepresented. So let's find the standard divisor for this apportionment. So the total population was conveniently counted for us. That's 240,000. We're going to divide that by 20. Note we can cancel the zeros. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So if we put this in the form that it's actually in, it's 12,000 people per 1 seat, or 1 representative. That's what that means. So each person that gets elected to the city council or whatever this entity is, they represent 12,000 people. Well, if we look at District 2, it has exactly 1/3 the population. Hey, how'd they get that, right? They did 240 divided by 80. That equals 1/3. So as our author notes, it'd be perfectly reasonable for that district to get 1/3 of the seats. Well, why can't we do that? Well, look at the number of seats. There's 20 seats. If we divide that by 3, we get 6 point something, right? Maybe I should get that exactly here. I don't want to switch the Desmos. Let's see, that's an 18. Remember this old school method? 6.666 repeating, right? And we can't give 0.6 of a seat. So what do? Well, we have to come up with a method of this. So we're going to work through this. It's kind of a weird thing. you can't assign seats simply based on the percentage of the population that each district has, unless it turned out that all of them divide out nicely. So what we do is we take the population of the district and divide it by the standard divisor. Okay, so that 12,000, and each district gets divided by that 12,000. Now notice the standard divisor is actually the total population divided by the number of seats. So if you remember how to divide fractions, it ends up that you multiply by the reciprocal of the dividing fraction. So here's this population of the district. I'm going to put that over 1, and we're going to multiply it by the flip of this thing. So it's number of seats divided by the total population. Now, notice what happens. If we rearrange, remember when you multiply fractions, you can do top times top, bottom times bottom. This can become the population of the district divided by the total population times the number of seats. And if you think about what happens with the units, so here's this written out, the units here are both people, they cancel, and we're left with the number of seats